Hi, my name is Mandy and welcome to my 2019 wrap-up. Oh, you want to be... Hi, my name is Mandy, this is Evie, and welcome to my 2019 wrap-up. We're going to be talking about my final book count, my average rating, a summary of everything I read in 2019. We'll be counting down my 5 least favorite books and counting down my 5 favorite books. We're going to start off with my least favorite books and end on the high note of my favorite books of the year. And number 5 on my list of least favorite books is going to be My Life with the Walter Boys by Ali Novak. This book is the quintessential definition of do not judge a book by its cover. I picked it up because it looked like a Casey West book. It's about a girl who loses her parents and ends up going to live with her mom's best friend from college. Well, mom's best friend from college has 10 or 12 boys living with her, I can't remember which. And she of course starts to fall for one, but then there's like a love triangle with another one, and it was just very disappointing. I went into it thinking cute Casey West book and got not that. And number 4 on my list is 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. This book really goes on my books that I should have DNF'd in 2019. This is a sci-fi book about a girl who loses her father. Her father had recently cracked the code to interdimensional travel. And when the guy who supposedly killed her father escapes into another dimension, she follows him. She needs to track him down. That's all I'll say. It was very, very insta-lovey, and not just insta-lovey, but really flowery language, the kind of one that just makes you want to gag when you're listening to it, especially since I was listening to the audiobook, and the audiobook narrator was very flowery. Blah. Coming in at number 3 on my list is Teardrop by Lauren Kate. This one is like a supernatural story about a girl who loses her mother. Wow, this is quite the tale. I swear that I am not just hating on books where people lose their parents. You've got a girl who has lost her mother and weird stuff starts happening. Then there's a guy named Ander who shows up and he keeps insisting that someone is trying to kill her and he needs to keep her safe, but he doesn't want to give her any information. This one, insta-lovey, 2, it just really did not flow well and I did not enjoy reading it. And I have the second book, but I'm probably never going to touch it, so I really probably should unhaul this book. Coming up number 2 on my list is Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James. This one is a murder mystery Pride and Prejudice sequel focusing on Elizabeth and Darcy 5 years after they've been married. Someone turns up dead and Wickham is the prime suspect and they have to try to figure it out. This one was less murder mystery and more someone writing fan fiction about Pride and Prejudice. Like it didn't feel like Pride and Prejudice. It felt like Pride and Prejudice fan fiction. And I guess that any book that is becoming a sequel to a Pride and Prejudice book is technically fan fiction, but that doesn't mean it should be published. And then coming in at number 1 on my list of least favorite books of the year is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. I think that the main reason why I didn't like this is because it's out of my genre. It is a young adult, but it is more horror than young adult, and I am not a big fan of horror. I read it during October and I thought it would be fun, but it just wasn't fun. I mainly picked it up because I had read other books by Kiersten White and her other books that I had read were funny and upbeat, and I thought that this would be similar. It was not similar. It was a Frankenstein retelling and it certainly kept with the horror genre vibe, which I wasn't feeling too much. But I had to say that if you are interested in horror, you can probably check that one out. It just wasn't for me, and it makes it on the top of my list of least favorite books this year. I guess I didn't say anything about it. It's about a girl who grew up with the Frankenstein family. She was adopted kind of as a companion for Victor because Victor's got some issues and she just kind of ignores his issues, and that's all we'll go with. Now let's get to the fun stuff. We're going to talk about my favorite books of the year. Coming in at number 5 is a recent read, one I haven't talked about on any wrap-ups. We've got The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. I was not expecting to like this book so much. I mean, I've never been really big on A Christmas Carol and the whole Scrooge thing. This book is a retelling of A Christmas Carol. The idea is that every year they choose a Scrooge to try to reform. And the main girl, Holly Chase, was a Scrooge, only she died just as the Ghost of Christmas Future predicted, and when she died, she became the Ghost of Christmas Past. She's been doing it for 5 years at the start of this book, and their new Scrooge for the year is a boy who is about her age when she died. This is the first young person that has ever been a Scrooge, and things just seem different, and things are different for Holly. I enjoyed this book so much. I wasn't prepared for how much I would enjoy it. Her journey, when I started the book, you know, she was still kind of meh and not a very good person. But as I kept reading it, Cynthia Hand did a great job of her progression and her learning. Spoiler alert, I gave it 5 stars. Who would have guessed, on my favorite book list. If you're looking for a holiday read that is not so much focused on a cutesy romance in the snow, this is the holiday book for you. Coming up number 4 on my list is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This book is very beloved on BookTube, and I wasn't sure if I should believe the hype, but I did. It lived up to the hype for me. I had read earlier in the year another book by Victoria Schwab, and I wasn't a fan of it, and so I thought that I would just give her writing another try, and I'm so glad I did. A Darker Shade of Magic is about a world where you have 4 parallel Londons. It's basically alternate dimensions of Londons, and the only person that can go through, or the only people that can go through, are the Antari. And Kel is one of those Antari. He basically acts as an ambassador between the different worlds. Out of the 4 Londons that exist, only 3 of them are travelable anymore. The 4th London, Black London, was where magic just basically exploded, and to protect the rest of the worlds and the Londons, they had to close it off, and all artifacts pertaining to Black London should have been destroyed. Only at one point during his travels across the dimensions, Kel finds that they are not all destroyed. He comes across an artifact, and that's where his story really begins. I feel like, as I'm trying to explain this, it feels really complicated, but when you're reading it, it doesn't feel that way. Number 3 on my list of favorites, The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. After reading The Raven Boys this year, I really wanted to read more from Maggie Stiefvater, and this is the first book that I picked up after that series. This is about a girl named Puck who is about to lose her farm, and so she decides to join the Scorpio races this year. No girl has ever raced in the Scorpio races, and the races are typically done on these mythical water horses that are a lot stronger than your typical horse. Puck does not have one of the water horses, so she decides to run the race on her regular horse. People are not okay with this, but she does it anyways. Along the way, she meets Sean, who is the favorite for the winner, and they start becoming friends, and they have a bond that comes together. It was so good. Maggie Stiefvater's writing is just beautiful. I loved it. It was so good, and I was very satisfied with the end. This is a standalone novel, so if you're looking for something standalone, this is what I recommend. Now, after that raving I just did about Maggie Stiefvater, I don't think that it is going to be a surprise for anyone when I say that my number 2 favorite book of the year was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This was my favorite out of all 4 books in the Raven cycle. So good. This follows a girl named Blue who has been told her entire life that when she meets her true love, he will die if she kisses him. She lives with a house full of psychics, and her only ability is to enhance the abilities of other psychics. She does not have any psychic abilities herself. I feel like I'm not explaining this well at all. Blue goes to a cemetery where they go to see everyone who dies in the year. It's one of the psychic abilities, and she never sees anything. She just helps them to see others, and she sees someone. She's told that the only way that she would be able to see that person is if he is her true love, or if she killed him or will kill him in the future. All she knows is that he is a Raven boy from the Raven Academy. She eventually meets him. His name is Gansey, and we meet Gansey and his 3 best friends, and they're going on a hunt to find a Welsh king. Man, just describing it, it doesn't sound as good as it is, but I promise you, it is so good. And Maggie Stiefvater's writing is fantastic. As I said, it's just fabulous. If you haven't picked up this series yet, I do highly recommend it. I need to do a reread because I was so excited about reading all of these books when I read them that I just like sped read through them, and I think I missed everything. Highly recommend. Number 2 favorite book. Now, really, my last favorite book really should not be a surprise for anyone who's been following my channel. You guessed it, it is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I loved this entire series. All 3 books are out now, so you have no excuse not to pick this one up. This is set in a futuristic world where people have superpowers, so I guess it's kind of a sci-fi and a fantasy at the same time. The Renegades are the ruling group of superheroes. They are the heroes, and there are various villain gangs. Our main character, Nova, is a member of the Anarchists. It's one of the villain gangs, and she lost everything because of the Renegades, so she wants to get back at them. She decides to go undercover and pretend to be a renegade, and there she meets Adrian, who's the son of 2 of the Renegade Council members, so the original founding Renegades. That's all I'll say. It is so good. I love Nova, I love Adrian, and I love all the side characters. I can't rave about this enough. Number 1 favorite book of the year. You have no excuse to check it out now. But I promise that now that this is my 2019 wrap-up, I will not talk about it as much. Don't want to get repetitive and don't want you guys hating me. So there are my top and bottom reads of 2019. I can't believe that this decade is over, but I just remembered that I never gave you guys any stats. I'm sure you would love to hear all the stats. So without further ado, the grand total of books that I read in 2019 was 181. Yeah, I was surprised too. I guess it comes with a little bit of impatience, where I know that if I don't get books read all in one go, that I will be wondering what's happening the next day, and so I will just sit up and read after Evie's gone to bed. But I'll give you the individual stats of the formats. This is not an exact number because I went through my Goodreads list and just kind of put a tally for every book, whether I read it as an audiobook, as a physical book, or in mixed format. And then when I counted up the tallies at the end, I was off by about 4 or 5. So I figure that it doesn't matter. To start out, I listened to 55 audiobooks this year. I read 71 physical books and did a combination of mix where I listened to the audiobook and the physical book at different times, and that was 51. And my average rating was 3.26. So I think that overall it was a pretty good year, especially considering that at the beginning of the year I didn't really do a lot of reading. At the beginning of the year I was listening to audiobooks, but not very regularly, and I didn't really start reading again until probably around April or May. So how was your 2019? How many books did you read? Did you read any of my favorites or my least favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like what you saw, feel free to click subscribe. You can also follow me on my social media, which I will link down below. I hope you are having a great bookish day, and I'll see you next time.